Four Nations is over. Congratulations, Team Canada. But we are back. NHL hockey has resumed, which means the Flames have resumed playing a game last night against the San Jose Sharks. There is lots to get into around this hockey game, around the Flames. Why don't Robert and I chat about it? Welcome inside episode 23 of the Red Mile Rundown. Thank you for joining us and making us part of your podcast rotation. I am your host, Johnny Soap, and of course, alongside me is Robert Munich. How are we doing, Robert?
Things are going pretty good, minus the fact that we went from the Four Nations face-off back to what we saw on Sunday night. Kind of had me like a little bit of a bummer last night, but other than that, things are going pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Excited to chat about this game last night. I'm already missing the Canada-US rivalry. We'll get into all that in just a second here. Just wanted to thank the listeners for your downloads, your shares, your subscriptions to YouTube, and all of that. We appreciate the numbers you guys are doing for us, and we appreciate the comments and the 5-star reviews even more. Keep those rolling in. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about the show. Tell us how much you enjoy Robert's writing on Flames Nation and how much you do not like John's takes on whatever he's giving a take about, or vice versa, whatever it might be for you. But we appreciate each and every one of you. Robert, you mentioned it there, the Flames playing, maybe getting even a bit lucky last night against the San Jose Sharks in their first game back from the Four Nations. What'd you make of that game last night and your thoughts, what you saw from the Flames here?
Yeah, I mean, it followed a pretty similar script to a lot of wins that we've seen this season from this team. It was Dustin Wolf plays fantastic. He keeps them in the game, and the Flames kind of scratch and claw their way to get to 2 or 3 goals, and that's kind of what we saw last night. I thought Wolf, specifically in the second period, was outstanding. Made a ton of good saves, and then, you know, you watch the Flames, like I said, they really, really struggled to generate offense. There's not a lot of creativity. There's not a lot of speed. There's not a lot of skill to their game right now. And, you know, they barely got to 3 goals against the worst team in the NHL. You know, you hate to criticize a win, but at the same time, when you take into consideration the level of competition they're going to have to face on the road over the next 6 games, seeing that performance against the San Jose Sharks was a little bit concerning for me. So, you know, overall, great that they got the 2 points, but bigger picture, it kind of worried me a little bit.
Yeah, like you say, you don't want to critique a win, and we're gonna do that a little bit here. But what I saw last night did not match what we heard all week long from the tone setting they were trying to give us through all their practices this last week. The pregame with Ryan Huska on the radio, he gave us a much different message than what we saw effort-wise and with the team on the ice last night. All due respect to a couple of guys who really showed out last night, but you're chasing Vancouver here, and you got lucky Vancouver lost both of their games, so you're within 1 point of them with a game in hand. But I think you also got a bit lucky against San Jose that it was San Jose, that you weren't playing the Colorados or the Torontos we saw a few weeks ago, because that would have been a completely different hockey game. In my opinion, I think we got lucky the San Jose Sharks aren't very good outside of Celebrini and Toffoli of finishing their chances and their opportunities for the Flames. And when you look at trying to find a guy who stands out besides Dustin Wolf, for me, I go to the fourth line. I think that was one of the better games, if not their best game of the season we saw from that fourth line. I dare people to talk negative about what they saw out of Rooney last night, because he was actually really good, scoring a goal, and he was very good offensively, defensively. Does anyone stick out for you other than that fourth line, other than Dustin Wolf for you, Robert? Or are you drawn the same way I am to the fourth line here?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Nazem Kadri played pretty solid. I know he had the one gaffe on the Macklin Celebrini goal to open the scoring. You know, he completely misread the situation and then put in no effort whatsoever to get back into position. So after that moment, I thought Kadri was really good, and I thought he actually carried the offense. Like last night, the Flames, they just struggled so much just to generate anything, and I just thought Kadri really took things into his own hands, you know, skating the puck up the ice, making plays, getting shots on net, really not trying to be like too fancy, just playing a really direct north-south game. I thought he was really good last night, and great to see Rooney score, great to see Hanley score. But I mean, outside of Dustin Wolf, the fourth line, Kadri, I mean, I didn't really think anybody stood out all that much. I thought it was a pretty ho-hum sort of vanilla effort from the team. So those are kind of my positive takeaways from Sunday night's game.
Yeah, I agree with Nazem there. He had a pretty tough couple of shifts there in that first period, giving up that goal as well. But I really liked his response over the final 45, 50 minutes of that hockey game where he dug back in and became the Nazem Kadri that you need from him. It's a shame that the other lines, the middle six specifically, didn't cue into what Kadri was trying to do and join him in that effort level. And I'm not saying that they were bad, but the Frosts, the Farabees, the Colemans, the Backlands, I thought were pretty invisible last night overall throughout that hockey game, outside of one or two instances of you saw someone doing one thing or one flash of something from someone. I thought that Connor Zary, his return to the lineup after his injury was only okay. Are you concerned at all with this middle six, Robert? The effort we saw last night, the mediocrity we saw from these guys, or are we going to chalk this one up to just off of a fresh break here? We're just getting back into things because we saw a lot of this throughout the NHL this past weekend, where you saw a lot of teams continually. It felt like they were still on vacation, really, when it comes down to it. Are you concerned at all about this middle six? What you saw last night, or are you going to chalk it up to that break there?
I'm concerned about the whole forward group moving forward between now and the end of the season. I mean, there's doesn't seem to be a lot of cohesion. There doesn't seem to be a lot of chemistry right now. They don't play with a great deal of speed, pace. They're not, like I said, they're not all that creative. They're not showing off really much skill. I mean, they make it very, very difficult to score goals. Like, they make it look super, super difficult. More difficult than a lot of teams in the NHL. I mean, we saw last night guys like Celebrini and Fabian Zetterlund, Eklund, Smith, Toffoli, like those guys, you could really see their skill and their smarts on the San Jose Sharks last night. Like, we didn't really get like any of that from the Calgary Flames. So yeah, I mean, this team, like we keep talking about, their goal is to make the playoffs, and I really question if they're going to be able to score enough to get there, because this group is just, they're not playing that kind of skilled sort of creative game. Everything is looks very difficult for them, and then on top of that, you don't really get much offense from the blue line outside of Mackenzie Weegar. So man, it's going to be tough. This upcoming 6-game road trip is going to be really interesting. It'll be interesting to see, if they just get run out of the building, or do they step up and start to play some better hockey. Like, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You watched how easily Celebrini set up in the offensive zone and found the soft spot, sure, broken coverage on the goal. Then you watched Toffoli, all of these around the net. You watch Will Smith and Zetterlund, like you mentioned, have a lot of success getting to the inside. And you're like, watching that, you're like, well, one, the Flames' defensive structure was not great last night, in my opinion. And two, you're wondering, why can't the Flames do this? Why can't the Flames get to the inside? They have guys with skill and drive. Your Frosts, your Zaris, your Kadris. Those guys can go to the net and create stuff. But why aren't we seeing it? And why isn't there any follow-up to that? And it's hard to pinpoint. Maybe it's just the way Ryan Huska wants these guys playing, but it's hard to win hockey games when you're always on the outside and trying to create from the outside and not being able to get into the middle. And if San Jose had any sort of finish outside of a Celebrini or a Toffoli, that hockey game really could have been 5-6-2 going the other way in a hurry for San Jose, of the way that they were able to create there. Also, for me, the last night, talking about that game, is you go 1 for 6 on the power play against the worst team in the National Hockey League. That's not great either. So you have your special teams not show up when you need them to show up, and you're unable to create from the inside. It's tough to score goals. How do you fix that? What do you do if you're the Flames to get to the inside to be able to create more goals? I just don't know if they have the skill to do so. You talked about lack of production from the back end. I don't even know if there's a way that you can create from the back end here. Do you have an answer, Robert? I know you'd be an NHL coach if you did have the answer, but how do you get to the inside? How do you create this offense that the Flames are lacking? And really, it seems like a big chore to be able to get to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to profess to be a head coach and know all the X and O's and all that kind of stuff, but for me, it just kind of feels like it's just coming down to a bit of a talent issue. And a lot of the players on the Calgary Flames this season, like if the Flames want to end up making the playoffs between now and the end of the season, they're going to need guys to step up across the board. It's going to have to be everybody, because currently this season, when you take a look at the forward group, you take a look at the decor, how many guys are playing like above expectation this season? Like I'll throw it to you quickly. Like how many guys off the top of your head do you think, like, yes, like this is the type of production you need from them moving forward, or this is kind of what's expected of them? Has anybody even gone above and beyond that this season?
I would say 0 or above and beyond. For me, there's a few meeting or at their expectations, but I wouldn't say there's a single soul above. Well, maybe Dustin Wolf in the way he's playing goal, but forward defensive wise, I don't think there's a single soul above expectations.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy I think I might throw in there is Matt Coronado, and
okay, yeah, good one.
I think he's only on pace for like 49 points over 82 games. So like even that's not like incredible production. So this team, they need people to step up. No one's stepped up this season. I know people like to give Jonathan Huberdeau credit for scoring some more goals this year, and that's great. But compared to where he's been in the past, it's still not. It's nowhere near where he needs to be. Nazem Kadri is only on pace for about 60 points. I mean, that's about a career average for him. You know, Sharon Govich is below expectation. Coleman's not quite producing the same amount that he's normally that we're normally used to seeing. Mm-hmm. Michael Backlund's below expectation right now. Like Connor Zeri's kind of right there. Farabee doesn't look all that good right now. Frost is, you know, pretty much playing up to par. There's just no one who's stepping up right now. No one's taking the bull by the horns. No one stepped up in that leadership role and said, okay, I'm going to start to play above expectation. I'm going to put my best effort out there. And it's really, really hurting them this year. I mean, we saw Coleman score 30 last year and Sharon Govich score 31. Career years for these guys. Kadri was over 70 points. Where is that right now? Where is that? The Flames need that from these guys. And once again, I don't know if it's a Huska system thing or if it's just one of those seasons where they're not playing above expectation. None of the players are. Like sometimes that just happens. I don't really know what the answer is, but man, these guys got to figure it out here in the final 27 games.
Yeah, it's we're not trying to be bleak on the show either. We're just trying to react to what we saw last night and what we're seeing going forward here for this team. So it might come off as negative, but when you're looking objectively at the Flames here, their biggest struggle is scoring goals. It really, really is. You combine Coleman and Sharon Govich, guys that you mentioned, and you're not even at 30 goals between the two of them, let alone one of them being close to 30 goals. So you don't have guys performing close to what you need to perform as. You need a lot of guys to pull up their socks. And if these guys are going to have to win, they're going to have to win by committee here. It's going to have to be a joint effort. You're going to have to see multiple guys have multiple good seasons. And when you have everyone just at an expectation or just below their expectation, no one's pulling that bus. No one's pulling it along. No one's taking the lead here, like you mentioned, and pulling this team along here. They don't have that guy. They don't have a McKinnon. They don't have a McDavid. They don't have a Crosby, a guy to lead them. So it's got to be a team effort here. And so we might not know the system. We might not know the X's and O's like Ryan Huska is trying to preach in the room, but it's pretty easy to watch this Flames group and be like, you're not good enough to get to the tough areas, and then you're not good enough to finish those opportunities when you do get to the tough areas outside of a guy or two. And that's a really tough way to win hockey games. And as good as Dustin Wolf has been playing, if you're not going to be scoring these goals, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to get to 4 goals a night. You're asking your goaltender to allow 2 or less every single night, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the rink you're in. And that's a tough ask for a rookie goaltender, let alone a veteran. You can ask Connor Hellebuck to do that, and that's still a tough task to ask your goaltender to do. So I don't have an answer for the Flames on how they're going to create more offense or how they pull guys along here or how someone becomes above expectations, but you're going to need a few guys here to step up their game. You need your Connor Zary to get back to what he was last year. You need Sharon Govich to start scoring again. You need Blake Coleman to start pulling along again. You need Backlund to be that 2-way forward we know he can be. You need all of these things to happen to fall into place to be successful. They're about to embark on a 6-game road trip that if they have the effort from last night in those 6 games, they're going 0 for 6 and it won't be particularly close. That's a scary thing to think about.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, this is a road trip from hell. It is an absolute nightmare for this team coming up here because when you take a look at it, I mean, they go into Washington. And I think the Flames, they play okay in Washington, but we have to keep in mind that this is kind of a whole new team. They're the best team in the NHL this season. They just scored 15 goals over the weekend. So that's going to be really difficult. You're putting a lot of pressure on Dustin Wolf in that game. Then you head to Tampa, a place where you don't play particularly well. You don't really match up all that well against the Lightning because of their high-powered offense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to Florida, the team that just won the Stanley Cup last season. Now, the Flames, they've actually had quite a bit of success playing in Florida, and Matthew Tkachuk won't be in the lineup. So that's actually a fairly winnable game for them. But then you got the second half of a back-to-back in Carolina. The Flames get crushed whenever they play the Hurricanes in Carolina. Like I said, second half of a back-to-back. That's going to be almost an impossible game to win. Mm-hmm. And then you go to Philly, and then you work your way down to Dallas. It's just like, it's a crazy, crazy road trip. And just with the way they've been playing over the last couple weeks, I think it could get potentially ugly. Like if the Flames could somehow get 6 points out of 12 on this road trip, I think you'd be doing cartwheels. I have a feeling it's going to be more in the 2 to 4 range. That's kind of how I'm seeing the road trip. How do you view it?
Oh boy, this is a loaded question. This could send you off in a couple of different paths of ranting, really. This is a 6-game road trip where if you're happy with 6 points, frankly, that's not good enough if you want to be a playoff team. And I understand the teams you're going up against. If you're trying to chase down Vancouver and you're trying to make the playoffs and be a playoff team, you need to get yourselves 8 or more points on this road trip. I know that's a tall task to ask, but you need to get the majority of these points available to yourselves. If you want to settle for 6, and I understand where you're coming from, so I'm not trying to knock you at all here, Robert. It's if you're okay with going 50% on this road trip, you're not a playoff team. Playoff teams are not 500 teams. This is not how it works. You got to get points. You've got to dig in. And then I look at the schedule. You got the best team in the National Hockey League in the Capitals. You got the Lightning, who always seem to play the Flames tough. You got the Panthers, who are back-to-back Stanley Cup final appearances with a win. You've got the Carolina team that always seems to wax you no matter where you are. A hardworking Flyers team. And then you end the trip, just in Dallas against one of the best, hardest-working teams in the National Hockey League. I struggle to find more than 2 points on this road trip for the Flames. I really do, because what we've seen from the last few weeks when the Flames play a team like a Colorado or a Toronto, they get run out of the building. They're just not skilled enough. They're not fast enough. And so those teams run over top of you. We're going to see a few of those type of teams on this road trip. And if you're not ready to work against the Flyers, against the Stars, against the Panthers, they're going to run you out of the building as well. So if you're not ready for these games, you're going to get run over in a hurry. This is a make or break for me for the Flames. You get 4 or less points on this road trip, the season's over, essentially. If you can get yourself 8 or more points on this road trip, I am fully ready, prepared to have a massive playoff conversation with this team. I don't see it going so well, though, and that's not what you want to talk about when you talk about the Flames. You want to talk about the excitement and the opportunity in front of this team and how they have an opportunity here on this road trip to really send a message to the rest of the league, which is all true. The question is, I don't know if they're good enough to do it and send that message.
I think I would push back on that a little bit, just because you take a look at that playoff chase for the second wild card spot. It's going to be a turtle derby. Like it's going to get ugly. I mean, you take a look at the Canucks right now. They are a train wreck. They could barely get 15 shots on Utah, who has the second worst home record in the NHL. They're playing brutal hockey right now. Quinn Hughes is hurt. Pettersson's a disaster. So you're competing with them. And then you got St. Louis and Utah, just 2 teams kind of like you, or you're super mediocre. So even if the Flames are only able to get like 3 or 4 points on this upcoming road trip, because the quality of competition around them is so bad, I don't see this being a season-ending type of road trip. If they do struggle here and they do get they do get trucked by these elite caliber teams, I wonder if it maybe changes the trajectory of their plans for the trade deadline. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know if this road trip would be a season ender. I mean, they'll still have about 20 games left after this, and like I said, the teams around them chasing that wild card spot stink. So I think it's going to be pretty tight, pretty competitive between now and the end of the season. That's just kind of my read on it.
Someone's going to back their way into that second wild card. I know Vancouver played a couple of rough games and it looked bad for them, but they have the talent of some guys here to push them forward. And if they can get
I don't know
good
if they do,
goaltending
man.
from
Like
Nate-
it's pretty much Quinn Hughes and that's it. The rest of the team is really, it's not that good right now.
well, you expect more from Pedersen for sure. What does Hedo bring you in that lineup? Can you get Besser going? I don't know. I think they have guys that could get going a lot easier than the Flames have guys get going. Maybe I'm just buying too much into
That's fair.
Vancouver, but I think their high end guys are higher end than what Calgary has, and so if your Flames aren't going to be getting these points, I don't know what Vancouver's doing over the same stretch, but I have to give them the inside track, and I have to give them the slight edge on that wild card spot. And if you're not going to collect points, and San Jose is going, or Vancouver's going to collect points, then it's tough to dig into to those things. And I know Utah sucks, and St. Louis isn't very good either, and Anaheim's is what they are, but you're also a catchable team if you're going to be dropping these points. And if one team gets hot here, you never know what's going to happen. Very valid points on your end though as well. Of someone's going to back their way into this wild card 2 spot for the Flames here. You
Well,
mentioned.
hey, I got one more question for you about the upcoming road trip. How many starts do you think Dan Vladar gets?
Yes, sir. 1.
And that's just the back-to-back in Carolina?
I think that's really all we're going to see. Dan Vladar is on back-to-backs, and then if there's a 3 and 4 night type situation, or Justin Wolf absolutely does need a rest, I think the Flames are ready to go down with the ship. Whether that's with Dustin Wolf playing his hockey or elsewise, I just don't see it. Like if Dan Vladar plays last night, I have no faith the Flames win that hockey game. And if we're thinking that out here, what are they thinking in the room as much as they like the guy? So I think they're going to go down with the ship. I think we see Vladar once. I think it's in the back-to-back.
What about in Dallas? Because, I mean, they play in Philly. That's their 5th game of the road trip. And then they have to travel from the eastern United States all the way to like the second most southern point team in the league. That's probably like a 3-4 hour flight. You lose some time with the time zone change. Like, that seems like a really difficult game for Dustin Wolf to play. And I'm almost wondering if Vladar ends up getting that one. I don't want to say he will, but I think it might be something the Flames consider.
My rebuttal to that is Dustin Wolf played 3 and 3 nights in the AHL for the last 2 years. So I don't think fatigue on a 23-year-old person is all that going to be all that much. I get what you're saying there, but I think that he goes in both those games. I really do. It's hard to put when you're trying to get as many points as you can. You want to play your guys and you want to get your number one in that net as much as possible, and to give yourself an opportunity. And it feels like the team doesn't have faith playing in front of Dan Vladar like they do with Dustin Wolf. And I just wonder, with such an important hockey game, maybe Vladar gets the Flyer game and then Wolf gets the Dallas game. Maybe they go the other way around there. But I find it hard to see anything more than just one start for Dan Vladar on this road trip here. You mentioned the trade deadline and how this road trip could affect what they do to the deadline. Do you think there's all that much difference between whether they win or lose on this road trip, what they do here? Or is it just, are we going to believe Conroy at his word when he says, we're going to stick to the plan? We have a plan and we're going to stick to the plan. Do you believe him, or does this road trip actually going to affect what he does at the deadline here?
I think if the team ends up playing pretty well and they do end up winning 4 or 5 of the games, they pick up 8 points kind of thing, I really wonder if Conroy's going to look at the whole situation to be like, okay, like I need to add something to this team, whether it's a 4th line center, whether it's a left shot defenseman to play in the top 4 alongside Mackenzie Weegar. I really wonder if the Flames, if they end up like competing, hanging in there with these elite teams in the Eastern Conference on this trip, I really wonder if that's gonna push Craig Conroy in a direction to add to this team. And like I said, I'm not talking like anything crazy. I'm not saying you're gonna go out and get a rental like a Brock Besser or something like that. Like, I think these are more depth players. Like I said, bottom 6 center, probably like a right shot center, some guy to play on your second pair. And these could be players too that end up having an impact on your future as well. Maybe they could be guys that have some term remaining on their contract. Maybe they're younger guys, but I just have this feeling that if they really flame out on this trip and they get trucked, and it's very clear and obvious that they can't handle the elite competition of the NHL, I think Craig Conroy's probably going to stand pat and end up using guys from the American Hockey League if they want to change up the lineup. But if they go on like a little bit of a heater here, and like I said, they pick up 8+ points on this road trip, I seriously wonder if Conroy's going to add to this team. Like they were talking about it on 960 the other day. Like they were throwing out names like Ty Dellandrea and Colton Sissons. Like those types of bottom six forwards. I wonder if Conroy would go in that direction. How do you kind of see it playing out?
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of, for me anyways, if you find success on this road trip towards the deadline and you see this team's playing well, you want to supplement that group. But if you see them getting caved in, I'm right there with you. I don't think he's going to also go, all right, we're going to have a fire sale because we've lost 4 of these 5 games on this road trip so far. Coleman's out, Kadri's out, Anderson's out. I don't think we're going to see a fire sale. I think it's going to be, we either need to bring in a guy or two for depth, or we're going to let or we're going to stand pat and maybe someone comes calling and they want to take Kevin Rooney off our hands for a late round pick or something, just as an example. I don't think we're going to see big moves from the Flames. I wonder if we're even going to see any moves from the Flames unless they do win on this road trip a little bit here, because as much as we keep hearing right shot center, everyone wants a right shot center, and people aren't just going to give those away. And when you're talking about someone who fits in the age group of the Flames, that's even harder to acquire. So maybe we see a depth defenseman, a depth centerman added to this group if they continue to put some points together here. But I don't think we're going to see very much from the Flames until the offseason. And I think that's when the moves will happen for this group here, because it's just this group. It can show you at times how good they are, but then you see weeks like we saw against Toronto and Colorado where they are getting caved in. And so it's hard to really get a read on this group. And so maybe just let it ride out. And if you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. And if you miss it, you just regroup yourself and go at it again next season. So this road trip definitely will affect Conroy's thinking, but I wonder if he just sticks to his plan of looking for that right shot centerman. And if he gets the right price here, then he pulls the trigger for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, and another thing too is you take a look at their pending UFAs. Mm-hmm. It's Anthony Mantha, Justin Kirkland. They're both injured. Obviously, you're not getting anything for them. It's Kevin Rooney, who's had a terrible season. You're not getting anything for him. Mm-hmm. It's Dan Vladar. Do they even want to trade Vladar? They just want to keep him there as a veteran presence.
Well, there's no market for Vladar. Let's be honest. There's none.
Totally. Like, could you get like a 6th or 7th round pick for him? Like, even that might even be pushing
doubtful.
It. There's Tyson Barrie. You're not getting anything for him. And Joel Hanley, who... Listen, Joel Hanley has been a good soldier. He's played pretty decent hockey for a guy who's had his career playing on the Flames this season. So I give him credit for playing some decent hockey, but at the same time, I don't think he's really worth a whole heck of a lot on the trade market. And then on top of that, Craig Conroy has already said he's not trading the veteran players, so just take them off the table entirely.
Yeah.
You look around the rest of the rosters, like, would you be open to moving a Braden Pahal, a Jake Bean, Martin Pospisil, Joel Farabee, maybe some prospects who are on the wing because they have so many of them to help either, bring in a bigger name player, like a right-handed shot center, it feels like there's just no options for them right now with the guys who are currently on their rosters. So I'm with you. I expect the trade deadline to be very quiet. I hope Conroy does not trade any futures for help right now. If there's a guy in the waiver wire you want to pick up, fantastic. If there's a guy, that you can acquire for future considerations, that would be an upgrade on Kevin Rooney. Fantastic. Go for it. But I don't think this team is in any position whatsoever to be trading draft picks and prospects unless they're bringing in like a really good young player. And like you said, that kind of happens in the off season anyway. So I expect it to be pretty quiet, but man, you never know with this owner, right?
Yeah. And we said a lot of the same things when Brad Treliving was the general manager too, but he always liked to go out and get himself those Fantenberg guys, the forwards of the National Hockey League, just to make a trade at the deadline to have another defenseman. Because according to Brad Treliving, you need 12 defensemen on your roster for some reason. I wonder if the Flames, and I've been thinking more and more about this as I watched this Flames team over the last couple of weeks here. I wonder how keen they are to actually go to the American Hockey League route instead of trying to trade for somebody after the trade around the trade deadline. I wonder if they are more. We've already seen them recall Solovyov. I wonder if they give Kuznetsov some run. I wonder if they could bring up Rory Cairns again to play, or if there's another forward, a Stromgren, someone like that. They turn to look to for offense and help rather than make a trade, because you just don't want to make a trade to make a trade. Sometimes the answer is in-house. There's extreme examples of it. We saw the St. Louis Blues use Binnington a few years ago when they called him up and he took them to a Stanley Cup final. We have examples that I wonder how keen the Flames are to use their American Hockey League team around the deadline rather than go the trade route. It's just a wondering of mine. There are guys down there that could fit what they're looking for. I wonder how long they give us Solovyov a look as well. Does Poirier get a look as well? And those kind of things, because you're not moving out guys. There's just no one to move out. You, Robert, just ran down the list of guys. There's no one to move out here. You're not getting anything for Villadar. You're not getting anything for Rooney. It's just not going to happen. And so I think we see the Flames stand pat unless there really is a deal that strikes them. And I wonder if they go to the American Hockey League as well to supplement this roster.
It feels like Ryan Huska is not, terribly open to having a whole bunch of young players in the lineup. Just like based off the way that he handled like the Roy Cairns situation. I mean, the guy gets 4 points in 5 games, then gets sent down, refuses to play him at center. If Kevin Ball was healthy yesterday, if he wasn't sick, Solovyov would have been a healthy scratch. Like it just feels like Huska at this point of the season, like he desperately wants to make the playoffs, because then I think that really helps his reputation around the league. I think it gets him even some head coach of the year consideration, the Jack Adams. I think Huska really, really wants to get this team in the playoffs because I think it's a big thing for his career. And I just don't see him wanting to put a William Stromgren in or get Rory Cairns in on the fourth line, because I don't know, I guess Huska thinks that having veterans in those places right now is the best thing for getting the team into the playoffs, which in turn would probably be the best thing for his career moving forward here. So it almost feels like Craig Conroy wants to get more young guys in, but Huska's like, I don't want any part of that. That's kind of my read on the situation.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a really good point by you. Yeah, he's definitely coaching for success, for the playoffs. Like that's what you want from a coach. I wonder though if there's that conversation where they say, "Hey, listen, like we got to make sure that we're honest with ourselves as well. You're going to push for the playoffs, but we need to play these guys." This road trip is so key because there's so many things that could happen post road trip, depending on the results of how this team goes. If this team, heaven forbid, they go 0 for 6 on this road trip and fall right out of things, does Ryan Huska, is he more keen in giving those guys a look at the lineup? Or if they go 6-0, is he less likely to want, they're more likely to push and try to get another veteran into this lineup here. So it'd be interesting to see how this road trip works here, and how this team comes out of this road trip and how they approach the trade deadline and the last 20-ish games of the season here, because it really, we've talked about it on many episodes here, Robert, it really could go both ways. We've both at times said this is a playoff team. We both at times said this isn't a playoff team. For me, this could go either way here, and this road trip is definitely going to define, I think, how we're going to see this team down the stretch drive here. Of course, other teams are going to be in the mix as well, but we'll see how they come out of this trade deadline here. Anything else on the trade deadline from you, Robert? Moves you'd like to see, guys? Maybe you're targeting anything like that, or
no? I mean, if we want to get into some targets, maybe we can do that next week, closer to the deadline. But I just think right now, if you're the Flames, just don't spend any future assets at all on this team. I don't think it makes sense. That's just kind of the way I view it.
Of course, I'm with you on that one. You posed a question to me on the show rundown here, and I like this conversation. I think we're gonna have fun with this conversation. You just simply posed to me: should the Flames bring back Sam Bennett? I'll give the floor to you. Should the Flames bring back Sam Bennett, and why is that the name that comes to your mind?
Well, just with the Four Nations face-off final there, Bennett scores that huge goal for Team Canada, and lots of Flames fans were posting about him on social media, and I made one, and it got a lot of traction and a lot of discussion going. And I've been seeing a lot of talk on social media, and I know Eric Francis kind of kicked off this discussion when Florida came through town earlier this season, just about the idea of the Flames going after Sam Bennett this summer, because Sam is going to be a UFA. I don't think Florida is going to be able to afford to keep him. So I could totally see him hitting the open market. And I think Calgary will probably be one of at least like 10, 15 teams in on this guy, because hockey people like in front offices, hockey men, quote unquote, even though I hate that term, they love guys like Sam Bennett. They love him. They love the physicality, the playoff performance, the fighting, the ability to chip in a little bit offensively. Like, these guys will do anything to bring in a player like Sam Bennett. So I was just kind of curious, should the Flames do that? And my initial reaction is no. I think this Flames team, as currently constructed, between for now and the next like 5 years, they have way too many middle six forwards making a lot of money, and that's exactly what Sam Bennett's going to be if he ends up playing for the Flames. He's not a first line center, and you take a look at his production over the last few years. It's 49 points in 71 games, 40 points in 63, 41 in 69, 35 and 56 this season. Decent numbers for a middle six forward, but nothing crazy. And man, it's going to cost a lot to get Sam Bennett. It's going to be at least 7 years. It'll probably be at least $7 million plus on that long-term deal. I just don't know if that makes sense for the Calgary Flames right now. Like I said, they have so many sort of middle six mediocre forwards making a ton of money. Like, you take a look at Huberdeau, Kadri, Backlund, Coleman, Farabee, Sharon Govich. They all make a lot of money. And then you have to sign Connor Zary, Matt Coronado, Morgan Frost, Kevin Ball, Rasmus Anderson, Dustin Wolf. Do you really need to add a $7 or $8 million Sam Bennett to your team when you already have to sign all those young guys and you already have a whole bunch of middle six forwards making a lot of money for the next few years? I don't think signing Sam Bennett makes any sense for the Calgary Flames with where they're currently constructed right now. So that's kind of my take on it. Where do you stand on the idea of bringing Sam Bennett here?
Yeah, I'm a firm no. And it's not to disrespect Sam Bennett, because they bring him in and he's a second line center for a team, and he can bring what he brings to the Florida Panthers night in, night out. You want that on your roster. But the Flames kind of have a bunch of guys already situated in that exact spot. They've got what is Frost longer term, what is Zary longer term. You can go down the list of your middle six guys. If he was you could make a case of him being a 1B center, then maybe I say yes to the conversation, because that's the kind of player you're looking for to help the top part of your roster. This Flames team needs to look at getting in skill, and bringing in more skilled players and supplementing what they have with skill. And I'm emphasizing the word skill, not that Sam Bennett doesn't have the skill, but he's not a high-end scoring player. You've got your middle six guys that can crash. That you got your middle six guys up the middle that can do a lot of things. You're missing a guy to help pull the train along, to lead this group, to take over that spot from Nazem Kadri when he moves on eventually. And it's not Sam Bennett. And then I look at the other side of it from Bennett's side of things, is what's his appetite to return to Calgary? He's the one that wanted out. He asked out. We remember back to when he left Calgary. He didn't enjoy how he was treated when he was first in Calgary and things. So I don't know if he has the appetite to even come back here. So do you go down that road and try to bring back a guy who really didn't want to be here in the first place, who's found a lot of success in Florida, and he's going to be pushing that market? He's going to be pushing $8 million a year, I think, for what he brings. And people, like you said, those hockey guys, they love what Sam Bennett brings to the lineup. They love his tenacity. They love what he can do. For me, it doesn't help the team, I don't think. Without another 2 or 3 moves to make room for Sam, it doesn't make sense for me, because he's just not that high-end guy. If he had developed into that first-line center, this might be a completely different conversation. But I'm with you there, Robert. Just great player. I just don't think he fits the Flames.
Yeah, and another thing to consider, too, at the start of his next contract, which is going to be a 7-year deal, he's going to be 29 years old. The Flames, they cannot be investing a ton of money on their cap to guys who are going to be playing with this team in their 30s, because they already have that. and they're going to end up signing Rasmus Anderson. More than likely, it feels like Anderson's probably going to get at least $8-9 million on an 8-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden your team is so expensive. They're so old. I don't think that makes any sense. The only way bringing Sam Bennett makes sense is if a guy like Morgan Frost says, "Hey, you know what? I don't really want to play in Calgary long term. I'd want to trade." So you need that, and then on top of that, you'd also need a Nazem Kadri to be traded, or a Blake Coleman, or a Sharon Govich, or a Michael Backlund. Like you need to get rid of some of this money on older players, and then also open up a spot for Sam Bennett in the lineup. And I just don't see Craig Conroy really doing that. So, like if they say, for example, say they end up trading Nazem Kadri this summer and they move out that $7 million, maybe you end up using that 7 on a Sam Bennett. That would make more sense to me than sticking with this current group of players and then adding Bennett to it when, like I said, you already have a whole bunch of Sam Bennett's on the team in terms of point production. So there's that. And like I said earlier, you want to make sure you have cap space for all your young players because Zary, Coronado, Frost, Ball, and Wolf are going to be very expensive. And then in a few years after that, you're going to have a guy like Zane Parekh who's going to need a new contract. And there's probably going to be some other young players that kind of come out of nowhere that are going to need contracts. You're going to need money for this. And I know the cap's going up, but you take a look at this cap situation for the Flames. It's not great long term when you consider they have to sign all those guys. They're probably going to sign Anderson. All your cap space is gone. So now you're going to add like a $7 or $8 million Sam Bennett, second line, third line player to that group. Like I don't know, man. I just don't think it makes any sense. And like you said, like why would he even want to come back here? Like doesn't he want to? Like he already experienced Calgary. Like doesn't he want to go somewhere else and potentially go to a better team? I know there's a new regime. There's no more Bradshaw living in Daryl Sutter, and the previous coaches who refused to play Sam Bennett in prominent situations. So there is a new regime, so that might kind of entice him a little bit. But at the same time, like all of his friends are gone from here. I think the only remaining player from the time Bennett was on the team is Michael Backlund. So it's like, why would he even want to return? Like you said, I completely agree with you on that. I don't think it makes any sense for the Flames.
And it doesn't really make sense where the Flames are in their cycle either. Like this is a team that's barely in a playoff race. And Sam Bennett's going to be looking for a place that's kind of where he can see a future of winning, can see a future of success here. I wonder if he's a candidate to go to a team like the Minnesota Wild, who have all this cap space opening up after the Parise and Suter are off their books. Like they have cap space there that they could bring in a guy like Sam Bennett to plug in behind Eriksson Ek and make guys fit a little bit more there. I wonder if that situation or something like that, it's better suited to what Sam Bennett's looking for. He's going to be priced out of Florida, and it doesn't make sense for the Flames where they're at. It doesn't make sense for Bennett really to come back to Calgary based on his experience the first time around. People get soured. That's just how it is. So I like the thought of bringing in a Sam Bennett-like player, but his age doesn't fit. His price doesn't fit. And where the Flames are in their cycle of trying to be a competitive team, I just don't see the fit there either, unfortunately, at this time for the Flames. Now, down the road, there's going to be a guy like... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if Sam Bennett's 23 years old, and it's kind of a similar situation to when Florida first acquired him, that's something that I think the Flames should definitely entertain. But to get a 29-year-old that he's pretty injury riddled, like the last time he played a full season in the NHL was the 2017-18 season. So he does get hurt. He plays a super physical brand of hockey. Is that contract and is Sam Bennett going to age well as a player? I'm pretty skeptical of that. So to bring in a 29-year-old whose body is pretty beat up, who plays an incredibly hard style of hockey, I don't think that makes any sense for the Flames. I know there's lots of Flames fans that want to bring him back because they love Sam Bennett. He's the highest pick in Flames history. It'd be a pretty cool story if he was able to come back here and actually be a really good player and actually play in prominent positions in the lineup. And almost kind of like a avenge for what happened to him in his first stint in the Flames. That might be kind of fun, but long term, yeah, man. I just, like we've been saying, it does not make any sense for this team right now.
And all due respect to those fans who would be excited to have Sam Bennett back, I'm pretty sure some of them would lead the charge when that contract doesn't age well to why the hell did we sign this contract? So it kind of goes both ways a little bit there. Robert, anything else from the Flames that you want to get on the show this week about the road trip this coming up here for the Flames, where you see this team headed towards the deadline here? Anything else you wanted to bring up here or talk about on the show?
No, it's Dustin Wolf's world, and we're all living in it. And if the whole season comes down to Dustin Wolf. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we've mentioned that a whole bunch of times on the show already this season, but it's the way the forwards and the way the defense are playing right now. It's going to be Dustin Wolf that gets them to the playoffs. It's not going to be the guys in front of him. He's going to have to continue to only allow 2 goals or less per game, like you said earlier in the show. That's what's going to happen here. So, you know, if for that crowd of people who want the Flames to make the playoffs, you know, put all your power, your prayers, and your thoughts into Dustin Wolf continuing to play the way he is. If your team tank, hopefully, you know, Dustin Wolf ends up falling off a little bit and hits a bit of a rookie wall. And if that happens, if Dustin Wolf does hit that rookie wall at some point here, which hasn't even happened this season, this team is screwed. They're totally screwed. So it's all on your shoulders, Dustin. You're a 23-year-old rookie. Good luck with that.
I thought you were gonna go, hey, Team Tank, if you want this, if you're in for Team Tank, you want to see a lot of Dan Vladar.
Yep.
That's what you want to see here. And nothing against Dan Vladar. I'm sure he's a great human, but yeah, it's a lot to ask of Dustin Wolf to go into Washington, into Tampa, into Sunrise in Florida, into Carolina and win some hockey games. But here we are. Good luck to the 23-year-old netminder. Hopefully he enjoys his road trip along with the guys, and hopefully someone on this Flames roster elevates their game. Hopefully we see that Rasmus Anderson get back to what he's supposed to be doing. Hopefully Ball's back in the lineup and get back up to speed quickly. Hopefully we see Connor Zary continue to take those next steps. Morgan Frost shows us why the Flames acquired him. Farabee gets off his couch. Sharon Govich finds a scoring check. Hopefully we see the old Backlund and Coleman, and hopefully these games, even if they don't win them, we see the process of the Flames and we see them dig in and show why they are a hardworking team. Because when they work, they're actually not bad to watch. When they don't work, we get games like we saw last night against the San Jose Sharks. And it's just not a fun team to watch unless you're a big fan of watching Dustin Wolf make other teams very frustrated in their efforts. Robert, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca? Where can the folks find you and on social media and all that good stuff there?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter as per usual at Ring of Fire CGY, and I've started doing like a new, I don't know if you want to call it a video series, but been posting like this day in Flames history. Just it's kind of fun just to look back and see, you know, some of the games that they won and some of the players that scored goals and all that kind of stuff. So check out my Twitter account for this day in Flames history.
I saw that Mike Camilleri one you did the other day, and talk about flashbacks, man. Holy cow. Follow him at Ring of Fire CGA on social media. Follow me, Vintage Johnny 84, again, across all those social media platforms. Follow the show at Red Mile Rundown, and don't forget to leave us that 5-star rating and review across whatever platform you listen to the show on. We appreciate that. And if you're on YouTube, comment. I guarantee you I'll comment back and we can have a conversation on there as well. Enjoy the early starts this week, Robert. 5 p.m.s across the board to the weekend. Then we got some afternoon hockey for the Flames. Hopefully they show up and give us some good hockey and get some good results. We'll see you guys next week. Same place. We got more Flames. Enjoy the hockey and have a great week.